Hey. So you know how sometimes you see those fantasy movies where some random farm boy becomes this absolutely terrifying warlord? Yeah, that's basically propaganda compared to what actually happened in Central Asia during the 1300s. And today, we're talking about the guy who somehow went from being literally nobody, and I mean nobody, to becoming the most feared military commander on the planet. A dude so scary that even the Ottomans, who were basically the superpower of the time, looked at him and went, yeah, let's just not. His name was Timur, and his story is wild. It's 1336, Central Asia. The Mongol Empire has basically fractured into 1,000 pieces, like the worst family inheritance dispute ever. You've got competing khanates, warlords, and local strongmen all fighting over what's left of the glory days. And somewhere in this chaos, in what is now Uzbekistan, a kid is born to the Barlas tribe. This kid, he's going to be called Timur, but literally nobody's writing it down like it matters. He's not a Khan's son. He's not nobility. His family was comfortable. They had some influence in their tribe. But in the grand scheme of Central Asian politics, he's background noise. Historians honestly don't know a ton about his early life, which is hilarious because by the end, he'll have enough chroniclers following him around that we'll know what he had for breakfast. But we know this. Timur grows up during the complete collapse of Mongol authority. The unity that Genghis Khan spent his life building? Gone. Replaced by this toxic stew of tribal warfare, banditry, and constant betrayal. The Barlas tribe isn't doing great. They're being pushed around by bigger players. And young Timur? He decides he's going to do something about it. But here's the thing. He doesn't have an army. He doesn't have legitimacy. He doesn't have the kind of pedigree that would normally let you command armies in this region. So he does what any desperate teenager with ambition would do. He starts small. He gathers followers, maybe 100 guys, then a few hundred. He participates in raids. He takes sides in local conflicts. He's basically freelancing as a military contractor, except instead of a LinkedIn profile, he's got a growing reputation for being really, really good at violence. But in 1362, something happens that almost ends his story before it starts. He gets shot. Like, genuinely shot with an arrow. The wound hits his right leg, and it gets infected. Historians think, though this is debated, that he also took an arrow to his right hand around the same time. The leg wound especially messes him up. He develops a permanent limp that'll follow him the rest of his life. The locals will eventually call him Timur the Lame, which literally means Timur the Lame. Now, being a crippled military commander should probably disqualify you from the job. Great plan, guys. Let's follow the limping dude into battle. But here's where Timur's actually kind of genius. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't try to pretend it didn't happen. Instead, he leans into it. He uses it as part of his identity. The dude's so confident that you're following a disabled warlord into combat because he's just that good, and nobody questions it. The 1360s and 70s are basically Timur's grinding phase. While other guys are playing politics at the royal court, he's out in the field, building alliances, making enemies, creating a network. By 1369, he's got enough power that he can do something bold. He officially declares himself the military leader of the region. But here's the smart part. He doesn't declare himself Khan. He doesn't claim direct descendancy from Genghis Khan like all the other wannabes do. Instead, he puts a puppet Khan on the throne and positions himself as the military muscle. It's like he looked at all the other warlords trying to convince everyone they had the magic bloodline required for leadership. And he was like, nah, I'm just going to be the guy who controls all the actual power. You handle the ceremonial stuff. It's 1369, and Timur is maybe 33 years old. He's been limping around for 7 years with a bum leg and has just basically taken over Central Asia through a combination of military skill, political maneuvering, and what historians politely call extreme ruthlessness. Now the question everybody has is, how does a disabled nobody from a mid-tier tribe beat out all the other ambitious generals in the region? And the answer is honestly terrifying, because it tells you something about how Timur's brain works. Timur wins because he's smarter than everyone else about logistics. While other commanders are thinking about the glory of single combat or grand cavalry charges, because that's what warriors did. That's how you proved yourself. Timur's thinking about supply lines, food, water, where the enemy can't escape. He's basically treating warfare like a chess problem, not a dance. Timur also wins because he's willing to do things that other commanders think are too brutal. When a city surrenders, they expect the usual deal. Everyone pays taxes, keeps their lives. Maybe they lose some soldiers. But Timur, he'd build a pyramid out of your skulls if you gave him an excuse. And I'm not being metaphorical. He literally did this. Multiple times. The psychological warfare aspect is unhinged. And finally, and this is the part that really matters, Timur's incredibly generous to the people who serve him. He takes care of his soldiers. He rewards loyalty. He promotes merit over nobility. So you've got this situation where brutal war tactics, combined with solid treatment of your own guys, creates this weirdly devoted military machine. People want to serve under Timur because, yeah, he'll destroy your enemies, but he'll also take care of you. By 1375, Timur's basically consolidated control of most of Central Asia. He's the undisputed big dog. He's got an army numbering in the hundreds of thousands. He's got the resources of multiple kingdoms. And he's only just getting started. Okay, so it's 1381. Timur's consolidated Central Asia, and now he's got a choice. Sit at home and enjoy what he's built, or start expanding. You can probably guess which one he picks. He starts moving west. He attacks the Khwarezmian kingdom. The siege of Khiva is where Timur announces to the world that he's not playing the same game as everyone else. The city resists, so Timur doesn't just sack it. He massacres the population. We're talking tens of thousands dead. He reroutes rivers to destroy the irrigation system, so the land itself becomes uninhabitable. He's not just winning, he's erasing. Here's a thing that's important to understand. Timur's not doing this out of pure evil. He's doing it as a strategy. He wants cities to surrender at the sight of his army, because they know that resistance is pointless. If you give up immediately, you pay taxes and keep your life. But if you resist, you get deleted from existence. It's horrible, but it's also incredibly effective. By 1393, Timur has conquered pretty much everything between the Black Sea and the borders of China. He's created what historians call the Timurid Empire. He's got trade routes. He's got resources flowing in from multiple kingdoms. He's got an absolutely enormous army. Estimates put it at around 200,000 soldiers at peak strength. And then in 1398, he does something that genuinely terrifies the world. He marches on India. India at this time is ruled by the Delhi Sultanate. It's massive, wealthy, and definitely not expecting a Central Asian warlord to show up. But Timur marches his army across the deserts and mountains. He doesn't take the easy route. He takes what contemporary sources call the route of death, because fewer logistics supplies were available. And he does it anyway, because it catches everyone off guard. The Delhi Sultanate sends an army to stop him. It's December 1398. The armies meet at the plain of Panipat, and Timur absolutely destroys them. We're talking maybe 100,000 soldiers on the Delhi side. Timur wins so decisively that the capital basically falls apart. When his army enters Delhi, something happens that shows you the mindset of Timur's military machine. They massacre somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 people. The numbers are debated. Medieval chronicles are weird about accuracy, but every account agrees it was absolutely horrific. Bodies pile up. The historian Nizamuddin Ahmad wrote that the city was so full of corpses that the living couldn't find places to sit. Timur stays in Delhi for a few weeks. He takes the treasure, which is absolutely enormous, and then he just leaves. He doesn't try to hold the city. He's not trying to build a lasting Indian empire. He wanted to prove something, and he proved it spectacularly. The Delhi Sultanate never fully recovers. And here's the wild part. This doesn't even crack the top 3 scariest things Timur does in his career. So Timur dies in 1405. He's 68 years old, which is basically ancient for his time. And he's been basically constantly at war for 40 years. He dies on a campaign against China, actually. Even at the end, he's marching his armies somewhere. What Timur leaves behind is genuinely complicated. On one hand, his empire falls apart almost immediately. Within a few years of his death, his descendants are fighting each other, and the Timurid Empire fragments. So he doesn't build a lasting political dynasty. But, and this is important, his descendants become incredible patrons of arts and science. His grandson Ulugh Beg becomes one of the most important astronomers of the Islamic world. His great-great-grandson Babur eventually founds the Mughal Empire and basically runs India for centuries. So culturally, the Timurid legacy is pretty cool. But here's what matters for understanding how scary Timur was. Even after his empire falls apart, people are still terrified of him. Centuries later, the Ottomans, the actual superpower of the region, are so worried about Timurid resurgence that they literally spend money and resources trying to keep the peace with potential claimants. Cities have legends about Timur. Merchants warn each other about him. Writers compose poems about his brutality. The thing about Timur that makes him different from like Genghis Khan or Alexander or all the other classic terrifying conqueror guys is that Timur wasn't born into power. He had no divine right. He had no legendary bloodline. He was just some limping guy from a mid-tier tribe who was smarter than everyone else about war and willing to be absolutely brutal in ways that shocked even brutal medieval warfare. He proved something that's kind of terrifying, that if you're smart enough, ruthless enough, and willing to completely destroy the rules everyone else is following, you can go from nothing to absolute power. You don't need to be born special. You just need to be willing to be scarier than everyone else. And that, honestly, that's way more frightening than any fantasy story about chosen ones and destiny could ever be. So that's the rise of Timur the Lame, a guy who went from literally nothing to terrifying empires just through sheer competence and willingness to be unspeakably brutal. If you want more videos like this about people who were absolutely unhinged in their pursuit of power, hit that subscribe button. And if you have questions or corrections about the history here, because medieval chronicles are messy and historians are always fighting about details, drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.